Welcome back to the deep dive. I want you to start today by just purging your mind of the London you see on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
Forget the brunch spots, forget the shiny skyscrapers, and definitely forget the, polite, quiet atmosphere of the Tate Modern.
Yeah, we're going back to a very specific moment in time, the early 2000s. The internet is, it's barely a thing, at least not in the way we know it.
Right.
And London is still a place where you could actually get lost.
And we are looking at a scene that was gritty, it was chaotic, and it was happening in buildings that, well, legally speaking, these people did not own. We are talking about the collective known as Wowow.
That's pronounced wow.
And for anyone listening, just so you can picture it, that's spelled with an exclamation mark at the start and the end.
It's a palindrome of excitement.
Exactly.
So the mission today is to really get our heads around how a group of squatters in Peckham, and we should be clear, this is not the trendy Peckham of today.
No, not at all. How they managed to build this cultural movement that attracted everyone from, future fashion icons to literal U.S. presidential family members.
It sounds like an urban legend, doesn't it?
It really does.
But this is a documented history of a creative incubator that just operated completely outside the system.
Okay, but before we get to the presidential nieces and the 10,000 bottles of beer, which, by the way, is a real number we will get to.
A very real number.
We have to set the stage. What was the vibe like in the London art world before these guys showed up? Because my impression of the early 2000s is all very polished, high-value, conceptual stuff.
You're spot on. You had the tail end of the YBA era, the young British artists. Think Damien Hirst, Tracy Emin.
Right.
By 2003, that scene was the establishment. It was expensive. It was all white-walled galleries, and it was really exclusive. So if you were a kid coming out of art school, you were basically looking at a closed door. You couldn't afford a studio in Shoreditch anymore.
So necessity breeds invention. Or in this case, necessity breeds breaking and entering.
Well, let's look at the origin. It starts in 2003, and not even in a squat, but in the back of a pub. The Joiner's Arms in Camberwell.
Which is such a classic British trope. The revolution always starts in a pub back room.
It does. And this was a performance night, founded by Hannah Hanra and Matthew Stone. It was scrappy, it was fun, but it was, limited. You can't build a world in a pub back room.
You can only visit it.
Exactly.
Yes.
So the pivot comes in 2004. This is the moment they decide, okay, we need more space, and we have absolutely no money.
And they find this massive, derelict Victorian building in Peckham.
Precisely. It used to be a co-op department store.
Yeah.
And this is where we need to get a little bit technical about squatting, because I think a lot of people picture, like, smashing windows in the middle of the night.
Yeah, how do you just take over a department store without the police dragging you out in, 10 minutes?
So in the UK at that time, there was this legal loophole. It wasn't a criminal offense to squat in a commercial building. If you could get in without using force.
Like an unlocked window or something.
Yeah. Exactly. An unlocked window, a door left ajar, and you secured the place, it became a civil matter, not a criminal one.
So you climb in, you change the locks, and suddenly the landlord has to take you to court instead of just calling the cops.
That's it. They'd slap a Section 6 legal notice on the door, which basically says to the police, we live here, this is our home, do not enter. It bought them time, sometimes months, sometimes years.
That is wild. It's like a game of cat and mouse, but the mouse has a law degree.
Sort of, yeah.
So they get this building. Who's actually moving it? Are you talking about random punks or are these, serious artists?
This is what really separates
Wow.
from just a standard squat.
Yeah.
The talent density was absurd. You had Matthew Stone, who we mentioned, Millie Brown, a performance artist, Adam Faramawi doing video installations. You even had Isabella Summers.
The Machine from Florence and the Machine?
The very same.
Okay, that is a heavy lineup.
But the name that really defines the whole visual identity of this era is Gareth Pugh.
Okay, for anyone listening who maybe doesn't follow high fashion, why is Gareth Pugh such a big deal?
If you've seen early Lady Gaga or Beyoncé's Run the World video or anything that looks architectural and severe and maybe a little bit terrifying.
That's Pugh.
That's the Gareth Pugh influence. He is one of the most significant designers of the last 20 years. And back then, he was living in this squat, making clothes out of, trash.
Literally trash.
Resources were scarce. And this environment, it created this very specific look. The group got known for this Harlequin-esque style. Lots of black and white geometric shapes, diamonds, masks. It was visual. It was loud. and it was so distinct.
It sounds like they were creating their own reality. Like you could step off a dirty street in Peckham, walk into this building, and suddenly you're in a different universe.
That is the key. It wasn't just about making art objects. It was about being the art. They wore the clothes. They lived the performance. It was a 247 immersive thing.
But you can't keep something like that a secret, especially if you're dressing like a geometric clown and living in a co-op.
All right, they needed an audience.
And they found one.
Or rather, they built one.
Yeah.
In 2003 and into 2004, they started throwing these huge warehouse parties. And when I say parties, I don't mean, a cook in the kitchen.
The numbers here are they're staggering. I'm looking at reports of 2,000 people.
2,000 people in a squatted building. No security, no official fire exits, just pure adrenaline and word of mouth.
I can't even imagine the logistics. The toilets alone. Actually, no, let's not imagine the toilets. But this brings us to my absolute favorite detail in this whole story. This is where the grit meets the glamour in the most absurd way.
You're talking about the Lauren Bush incident.
I am. So you have this illegal rave in South London. It's sweaty, it's loud, probably smells like cheap lager. And in walks Lauren Bush.
The niece of the then-sitting president of the United States, George W. Bush.
And she's not alone, right? She didn't just hop on the night bus.
No, she was accompanied by 2 CIA bodyguards.
Just picture that scene. You have Gareth Pugh in a corner making a dress out of balloons, 2,000 art school kids dancing, and then there are 2 guys in suits with earpieces scanning the room for threats, protecting the president's niece.
It's surreal, but it perfectly illustrates the magnetic pull this group had.
Yeah.
There's a certain cachet to that kind of grit that high society finds irresistible. It felt dangerous. It felt authentic.
Right. If you were at a Wowow party, you were at the center of the cultural universe for that one night.
It's the ultimate cool factor. Money can buy you a table at some fancy club, but it can't buy you entry into a squat party unless you know the right people.
Though I guess being a Bush gets you in anywhere.
Apparently so.
Yeah.
But we shouldn't get too distracted by the celebrity bit, because under all the parties, there was serious work going on. They weren't just messing around.
Exactly. They were putting on proper art exhibitions.
Let's talk about the show in December 2004. This was in a new location, wasn't it? Yep, 251 Rye Lane, another Georgian building, another former co-op. And again, they didn't just walk in. They had to gut the place themselves. They were doing construction work, refurbishing a derelict building just to make it gallery ready. That's some serious sweat equity.
And the art was eclectic. I feel like that's the polite word.
It was a riot of styles.
Yeah.
You had Chloe Du Matthews showing these serene photographs of Lidos, the outdoor British swimming pools.
Okay, very calm. And next to that,
You had Matthew Stone doing digital recreations of old master paintings, Rachel Haynes doing surrealist collages, and Booth Seville doing these monkey paintings and incredible B-row drawings.
it sounds like total chaos, but I guess that was the point. There was no curator saying, does this fit the theme? The theme was just, we are here.
So that's it. And the opening nights reflected that energy. It was not wine and cheese. It was performance art mayhem.
I have to ask about the shopping trolley Mardi Gras. What on earth is that?
It is exactly what it sounds like. A parade of decorated shopping trolleys, probably stolen from the nearby Sainsbury's, just processed through the space. It's taking the junk of urban life and turning it into a carnival.
And then there was the thriller recreation.
Oh, this is legendary. Lolly Chetwynd, who now goes by Monster Chetwynd, a Turner Prize nominee, by the way.
Yeah.
She organized a full recreation of Michael Jackson's Thriller video.
But not like a polished Hollywood version.
No. Think handmade costumes, cardboard zombies, a whole troop of friends committing 100% to the dance moves in the middle of a squat. It's funny, but it's also really sincere. It's that sweet spot between we're just playing and we're making something iconic.
It feels like that specific energy, that serious play, it really hit its peak in 2005.
That was the Children of Wowow era.
Which sounds a bit like a cult, but maybe the best kind of cult.
In November 2005, they pulled off their most ambitious project yet, a week-long festival curated by Gareth Cadwallader. They took over a huge warehouse and a bunch of smaller local spots.
And the programming for this week, it just reads like a fever dream. They had a stolen cinema.
Which was literally them renting cult films from the local video shop and just screening them. Simple, but so effective.
They had a play called Factory Dog, and my personal favorite, The Greasy Spoon Art Salon Breakfast.
Hosted by Lolly Chetwynd and Zoe Brown. I mean, taking the most mundane British thing, the Greasy Spoon Cafe, and turning it into an art salon. It's all about elevating the everyday.
But we have to talk about the finale, because if the Lauren Bush story shows us the who, the stats for this final party show us the how much.
The numbers are frankly dangerous.
Okay, so 1,500 people at the closing party, big crowd, but let's look at the booze.
They went through 10,000 bottles of beer
10,000.
and 500 bottles of whiskey.
Wait, hold on. 500 bottles, if you do the math on that. That's like a third of a bottle of whiskey per person on top of almost 7 beers each. That is not a party, that is a medical emergency.
It was a festival of excess. They had 13 live bands, including the Long Blondes. It was just an absolute explosion of energy.
So how did they sustain this? I mean, 10,000 beers aren't cheap. Where was the money coming from if they weren't charging huge entrance fees?
Well, sometimes they were charging a few quid on the door or selling the booze themselves, but the real economic engine was what they weren't paying.
Rent.
Exactly. And this gets us to the core philosophy.
Yeah.
The aha moment of why what really matters. Matthew Stone said something that I think just defines this whole generation of artists. He said squatting was an opportunity to invest in what they actually believed in.
And he contrasted that with the alternative, right?
Yes. He said the alternative was chipping off bits of our soul working as unpaid interns.
Oof. That hits hard. I think anyone who's tried to break into a creative industry knows that feeling. You work for free for exposure, but you're still paying $1,000 a month for a tiny room.
It's a trap.
Wow.
Stepped outside of it. Stone's point was that by removing the financial burden of rent, they bought themselves time to be playful. He said, and this is the key quote, serious ideas came out of that ridiculous house.
Serious ideas came out of that ridiculous house. That should be on a plaque somewhere.
It's the incubator theory. If you lower the overhead to zero, you can afford to fail. You can afford to dress like a harlequin and make a dress out of bin bags. If you're paying market rent, you have to make art that sells. You have to be commercial from day one.
They were pre-commercial.
Totally. They even had their own media arm to document it all. The fanzine, fashion, art, leisure. They were controlling their own narrative before that was even a buzzword.
But as with all good things, especially good things involving London real estate, it had to end. The core group left that main Peckham building in 2006. Was that it? Was that the death of the collective?
Not right away. The energy kind of dispersed, but it kept moving. They went international, did events in Dresden, Germany.
And back in London, they just kept finding the weirdest possible venues.
They squatted a quick-fit garage in Camberwell for an exhibition.
From a Victorian co-op to a tire-changing shop. I love that.
Yeah.
Yes, I'll have an oil change and a surrealist collage, please.
It proves the vibe wasn't about this specific building. It was about the approach. They did an event in Birmingham in 2007. Millie Brown and Adam Faramawi kept the torch lit, bringing in new people.
So, zooming out, we're looking back at this from the mid-2020s. London is so different now. Peckham is so different. You can't even buy a coffee in Peckham for less than 4 quid, let alone squat a department store.
And that's the tragedy and the lesson of this story, isn't it?
Wow.
It's a perfect case study in what happens when you just give young, creative people space.
We talked about Gareth Pugh changing fashion. The music, the whole aesthetic shifted from that 90s minimalism to this like maximalist new rave explosion. A lot of that happened because of this specific space.
It's the business model of Bohemians. High creative output requires low living costs. When you gentrify a city so much that a derelict warehouse costs millions, you kill the incubator.
You push the weird out, and when the weird goes, the innovation goes with it.
Exactly. You end up with a very polished, very safe, and maybe a very boring culture.
Well,
It was messy, it was dangerous, and probably a health and safety nightmare. But it was alive.
so here's the thought I want to leave you with today, and it is a bit of a provocative one. We live in this era of the side hustle. Everyone is trying to monetize their hobby because rent is just astronomical. We're all those unpaid interns Matthew Stone was talking about.
We're all working just to pay for the space to sleep with no time left over to dream.
Exactly. So in this landscape of sky-high rents and relentless hustling, where's the next Montool assault supposed to come from? Is it even possible to have that kind of ridiculous creativity when you literally can't afford the physical space for it to happen?
It's the question that kind of defines the future of our cities. If we don't make space for the chaos, we're going to lose the culture.
Something to think about the next time you walk past an empty building and wonder what could be happening inside. That's it for this deep dive. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.